One of these two teams will be in first place in the NFC South after Sunday.
And we all know it's going to be the Bucs.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to a crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks, the first one of the season. It is crossover Thursday here on Locked On Falcons and Locked On Bucs. And crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 off, $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, of course, crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks here on Locked On Falcons. I am the very humble host, Aaron Freeman, joined by my illustrious guests, the host of Locked On Bucs, James Yarcho. And we, of course, appreciate each and every one of you that is an everydayer of our two very, very illustrious podcasts. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Now, today on this crossover Thursday, the very first of many this upcoming season, we'll be talking about game-changing players, matchups to watch, keys to victory. That's all in store for you. But it is a big week ahead, right? It's week one, the biggest week of the year. It's like Christmas to all the football sickos and fans, right? And we got to talk about the biggest stories for each one of these teams to start things off. And, James, because I'm such a gracious host, I'm going to let the Bucs start off with as the away team. What for you is the biggest story as this team makes their way up I-75 as they travel to ATL this week?
Well, I want the biggest story to be about the rookies. Emeka Egbuka returning to where he just won a national championship in that very stadium. Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish starting. But that's not the case. That's not what I'm going to talk about because we're not even to the first game of the season and the Bucs are just decimated with injuries. I know the Falcons have dealt with theirs. I'm sure we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but Chris Godwin is still working his way back from that broken ankle that he suffered against the Ravens last year. Tristan Wirfs had a very late surgery on his knee and he's not going to be available for this game. But on top of that second round rookie that I just mentioned, Benjamin Morrison, he's missed the last 4 weeks with it was originally talked about as a hamstring injury. He's listed on the injury report with a quad injury. He did return to practice in a limited fashion. I don't think he's going to play on Sunday, but then the kind of the surprise you and I were talking about before we started recording, Vita Vea all of a sudden did not participate on Wednesday with a foot injury. So you have all these injuries to legitimately key players for the Buccaneers on both sides of the ball that are already in question for week one.
Yeah. And you didn't even mention guys like Jalen McMillan and Cade Otton, who are nicked up, and injuries are an issue for the Falcons, being potentially down starting wide receiver Darnell Mooney is working his way back with a shoulder injury. His status is up in the air for week one. We know a player that will not be starting for the Falcons week one, that is right tackle Caleb McGarry. He's out for the season with a leg injury. And so those are going to be challenges for the Falcons to have to overcome if particularly with Mooney's out of the lineup. But let's start this thing on a positive note, James. This is how I don't want to talk about injuries and how the Falcons have to overcome. I want to talk about Michael Penix Jr. And that's really kind of the big story for this game for the Falcons. It is the beginning of the Michael Penix era. He's now the fifth different week one starter for the Atlanta Falcons in the last 5 years. And there were high expectations for the 4 previous ones, and they failed to deliver on those expectations and guiding this team back to the playoffs, a place they have not been since the 2017 season. But James, this time, it's definitely going to be different this time. And the reasons for that optimism is because Michael Penix's big arm is going to hopefully raise the explosive ceiling for this offense. And I know Bucs fans are very familiar with the explosiveness of the Falcons offense, especially given that 500-yard performance that Kirk Cousins had to kick off our favorite month of the year, James. It's Kirktober, right? We're going to have to come up with a new name with Penix at the quarterback position. But
Oh,
you
shucks.
know, if we could get that with Kirk Cousins, well, imagine what we could get with Michael Penix Jr. So there's a lot of reason for optimism with Michael Penix at the helm. He's obviously untested, but there's lots of potential. You got a second-year play caller in Zach Robinson, who, someone's got to come for Liam Cohen's throne as the top play caller in the NFC South. I know Bucs fans think that's going to be an in-house candidate in Josh Grizzard, but Zach Robinson, hey, the throne is vacant, so might as well, someone's got to claim the crown. So maybe he will be that guy. And the Falcons have a lot of talented weapons on the offensive side of the ball to allow Michael Penix era to begin in a very successful way. And I think for both of these teams, this game kind of has the potential to kind of set the tone for the rest of the season, right? That the Falcons kind of need a win just so they can show, hey, we're a legit contender in the NFC South, while the Bucs are just like, the Falcons will probably blow the lead anyway. So even if we lose this week 1 game, it'll be fine because they have been able to do that the last couple of years when the Falcons have been in first place in the NFC South midway through the season. So I feel like this game has real sort of vibes check, for the Atlanta Falcons more so than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see like a really good look at Penix, because he went into, I don't want to dump on Penix because you know that I wasn't a huge fan of his coming out of the draft, but for me it wasn't the athletic talent, it was upstairs. So has that part in being able to read NFL defenses and adapt to the speed of the game, has that changed at all? And is he going to be able to put that together with his insane arm? So I am really interested to see how he performs. Fun fact, just going to throw this out there. Michael Penix will be the 9th left-handed quarterback to start a game against the Bucs in their history. The Bucs only have a winning record against 2 of those left-handed quarterbacks, and one of them is Michael Vick. Just thought that was fun. So lefties in Atlanta seem to be something that the Bucs can handle, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Like you mentioned, Kirk Cousins throws for over 500 yards a couple of times against, the Bucs defense. And I use that term loosely considering they were using ticket takers and parking lot attendants and beer vendors as corners in those games. But that was the best that Kirk looked all year. Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, they seem to be able to dial up the right things against Tampa last year. Going to be interesting to see if they can do it again this year with who Atlanta is hoping is the future of the franchise for the next decade or so.
Wait, James, you telling me Tyreek Funderburk is not an elite NFL corner?
Tyreek Funderburk did the best that Tyreek Funderburk could do given the situation. I like Tyreek. I do. I like him a lot. I'm disappointed that he's on the IR right now because as he progressed through the season, he got really, really good. But that's another reason why I'm so frustrated that Benjamin Morrison isn't going to be playing. You'll have Jamel Dean out there for, I don't know, maybe a half before he hurt something. And then Zion McCollum, who has, risen rapidly through the depth chart and was really on fire last year. So for fantasy purposes, let's hope Drake London has a good game. But outside of that, I'm hoping the Bucs defense shows up this time.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Drake London has a good game, especially if a rookie in Jacob Parrish gets matched up on him. But, there is a little bit more of an intriguing matchup for me going into this game, and it's going to be Kyle Pitts, especially with the potential of Darnell Mooney. And let's get into some more of these intriguing, potentially game-changing matchups as we continue today's Crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks. It's almost the weekend, and this year we'll be taking a long look back and crowning weekly MVPs on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. And these are going to be the players who deliver when it matters most, just like on DoorDash, who are going to help you win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. But since it's week 1, we're looking ahead. And for the Falcons, they're hoping that quarterback Michael Penix delivers in a big way in this week 1 matchup. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's rookie wide receiver Emeka Egbuka when the pressure is on, we hope that both of these two young players come through with no hesitation or delay. And we hope this marks the beginning of a long streak of successes for both of these players that will carry on for years to come in the NFC South. And just like Penix and Ibuka hope to deliver every Sunday, DoorDash is going to deliver every Saturday. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday when you order, stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. So, James, getting into some of these intriguing, key, game-changing matchups, all the adjectives. I mentioned Kyle Pitts going up against this Bucs defense, and I think this is a big matchup because Kyle Pitts typically plays his best ball against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got to see, one of the better versions of Kyle Pitts last year in both of these matchups against the Bucs. Last year in weeks 5 and 8, week 8, I think, coincided with National Tight Ends Day. That also was a big game for Cade Otton as well in the Bucs offense. But, with concerns around Darnell Mooney, I think the expectation is going to be someone's going to have to step up and be that number 2 if Mooney is limited this week. And even if Mooney does wind up playing, I think he'll probably be on the pitch count at this rate because he basically missed all of training camp with a shoulder injury and only just recently started working back to practice. And so there's probably going to be a little bit of a ramp-up period for the Falcons rather than dropping him in the deep end. And I think given Pitts' success against this Bucs defense historically, his best games often come against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think, he's going to be one of those key game-changing matchups to keep an eye on for the Falcons offense. And for you, James, when you're looking at this matchup between the Bucs defense and the Falcons offense, what sort of intrigues you?
I'm looking at Hassan Reddick and the Bucs edge rush against that beaten up right side of the offensive line. Look, Todd Bowles, we know that he loves to send all kinds of different looks, different blitzes, exotic schemes to try and confuse especially young quarterbacks. So Michael Penix didn't get a chance to really see Todd Bowles' defense the way it is designed to be last year because of all those injuries. So they go out, they get Hassan Reddick and bring him in to elevate the pass rush. They haven't had a double-digit sack player since 2021 in Shaq Barrett. So Reddick needs to start hot, and he has to take advantage of that injured right tackle position. And it's not just going to be him. They're probably going to move Yaya Diaby over there a couple of times. You're going to see Anthony Nelson. You're going to see some of these corner blitzes. Izzian probably isn't going to play. I wouldn't think. He's dealing with an oblique injury. He's a guy that Todd Bowles loves to send on blitzes. So now look for Antoine Winfield Jr. to do that instead. Antoine, much like Kyle Pitts, has some of his best games against the Atlanta Falcons. And then, of course, with the change at linebacker, you're going to have Levante, I would guess, probably covering Pitts a little bit more than he has in recent years. But, the past couple of times, I think the last 3 matchups, he's been covered by KJ Britt, which is not good. All Bucs fans listening to this just kind of shuddered a little bit when I said KJ Britt. But, that's what you have to do. You have to be able to bring your alpha edge rusher off that right side, coming at Penix's blind side and really start things off hot, get him rattled a little bit so that all of a sudden Bowles can start teeing off and getting into his bag the way that we know Todd Bowles can do.
Yeah, that certainly is going to be a challenge for the Falcons with Elijah Wilkinson starting at that right tackle position. But for the Locked On Falcons fans know that, we know that the Atlanta Falcons, the last thing the Atlanta Falcons would do was leave Elijah Wilkinson on an island against Hassan Reddick because it's not as if they did the same thing last year in week 1 with Caleb McGarry against TJ Watt. That's not going to happen. So I think we'll be fine because the Falcons never disappoint you when it comes to those things. But flipping to the Falcons defense going up against this Bucs offense, I'm in a similar mindset as you. I'm looking at the, replacement offensive tackle in Charlie Heck stepping in for Tristan Wirfs. And I just kind of want to see the Falcons' entire pass rush rotation. I don't think it's going to be an individual because the Falcons' plan is to constantly have a virtual conveyor belt of different pass rushers, guys rotating in pretty much every 4 snaps, and a different group of players rotating in constantly in this game. So, basically everybody can get it when it comes to Charlie Heck. And I've been watching some Charlie Heck over these last couple of days, and I haven't been that impressed, James. I don't know how you feel about Charlie Heck, and maybe he's played better this summer in the preseason than he has in the past, but I went back and watched him when he was in Houston and with San Francisco, and watched a little bit of him in the preseason. And again, maybe I'm talking out there. He just seems bad, and I feel like this is something that it's a very technical term we use. Bad at blocking, and so it just feels like this is something that the Falcons could potentially exploit, especially if they can get into some situations on third and obvious situations where they can tee off as pass rushers.
Yeah, 100%. And I would categorize Charlie Heck starting as not ideal. When you're going from the best left tackle in the NFL to a journeyman backup, that's usually not a great sign. And I love what the Falcons did in the draft. I don't know if you remember, Aaron, but during our network mock draft, I took James Pierce for the Bucs with their first round pick. So adding him, adding Jalen Walker, like those are some studs. Todd Bowles had very high praise for both of those guys. He said Walker was one of his favorite prospects in the draft this year when he was speaking about them on Monday. So much like what you just talked about, I don't think they're going to leave Charlie Heck out on an island in this one. You're going to have, if Cade Otton plays, I would expect him to be in and blocking, but look for quite a few snaps from Ko Kieft. He's kind of the resident blocking tight end. I could see him lining up outside of Heck quite a bit. Might even see some of the, pony package that we saw a lot of last year with both Bucky and Rashad in the backfield. Rashad is a much more refined pass blocker than Bucky is at this stage in his career, although Bucky is getting better. So all the sacks, all the blitzes coming from both defenses. We are going to be in for like a 9-7 slobber knocker in this one, Aaron. But I want to talk about this Bucs offense against the Falcons defense. And the big matchup that I'm looking for is going to be Emeka Egbuka against Mike Hughes. I'm guessing Hughes is going to be the one that lines up on Egbuka. He's making his NFL debut. I just mentioned the last time he played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He won the national championship with Ohio State, and he's going to have a massive role in this Bucs offense with Godwin and McMillan both sidelined. Now, Mike Hughes' worst game last season, according to PFF, was against Tampa in Atlanta. So if the Bucs can get Egbuka rolling early, it's going to start to open things up for Mike Evans on the other side, as well as Bucky in the run game, because I would assume that Raheem Morris is going to say, look, we need to make the rookie prove himself. We got to focus on Mike. He's always good against us. We got to focus on Bucky. He was the new hotness down the stretch of the NFL season at running back. So eliminate those guys. Force the rookie to beat you in his first NFL game. And I think Egbuka is talented enough to definitely make a statement early on, because Baker loves this kid. Baker loves him. He has been on numerous podcasts, numerous shows, and he always brings up Egbuka unprompted. Like, they're not even asking him what he thinks about the draft class. They're like, oh, what are you excited about? Emeka. Like, that's the straight up answer. So he is going to be heavily involved, and I think Hughes is a matchup that he can really take advantage of.
Yeah, I've been impressed with what I've seen from Egbuka this summer, and I'm not looking forward to, it's been 11 years of Mike Evans destroying the Falcons secondary. So I'm hoping that once we get Mike Evans out the paint in the next couple of years, like, that streak won't continue with Egbuka, but the signs are not looking particularly promising, and he'll have plenty of opportunity to get going and press right away. In some, as you mentioned, some favorable matchups. We know the Falcons struggle so much against Mike Evans to the point that they got to do everything in their power to slow him down, and that's allowed players like Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Cade Otton to eat when they have those opportunities. So I think Emeka Egbuka is another one that could potentially have those opportunities, and slowing down this Bucs passing attack is going to be key for the Falcons. to get a W to start their season. And, we'll talk about some of the other things that each of these teams have to do in order to walk away from this Sunday with a W as we continue and wrap up today's Crossover Thursday. So Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. And as an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, and you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel, with the smooth handling, the intuitive controls, and the standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. And today's episode is also presented by FanDuel, with the NFL season just right around the corner. FanDuel is going to make sure that you're ready for kickoff with this can't-miss offer, because right now new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. $300 to use across the FanDuel app. Again, if your first $5 bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets, and FanDuel's giving you so many ways to win, just to keep things interesting, right? If you think this is going to be a big game for Emeka Egbuka, then go check out the player props for Egbuka. Or if you feel like it's not just Egbuka, but it's also Kyle Pitts and Antoine Winfield, hey, maybe you can go out there and put in the same game parlay. It's all available for you over at FanDuel. All you got to do is download the FanDuel app today. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So wrapping up today's Crossover Thursday, presented by Prize Picks. Aaron Freeman here of Locked On Falcons. James Yarcho, Locked On Bucs. And James, let's get into some of these keys to victory. I have 3 for the Atlanta Falcons. And it's funny, James, because I was sitting here sort of contemplating what are going to be the keys to victory. And I didn't want to necessarily come up with the same generic ones that we always come up with when it comes to, you got to, stop the run or establish the run, or you got to get turnovers or whatever. And so I went back and listened to our crossovers from last year, and I came up with the same generic ones. And I'm just like, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is the reason why these are all cliches when it comes to how and why teams win football games. And so for me, my 3 are the Falcons getting off to a fast start, pressuring the quarterback, and winning the turnover battle. The Falcons did not have any opening drive touchdowns under Michael Penix in his 3 starts. And oftentimes in all 3 of those starts, they really didn't get their offense into a groove, at least the passing game, until like midway through the second quarter. And the Falcons have been very public with the way that they've built their team, which is they've built their team to play with a bunch of leads. And in order to get a lead, you got to score some points early in the game, right? So I think that's going to be a key. And then when you talk about building to play with leads, because the Falcons have invested heavy resources in their pass rush, and there's still concerns about their run defense heading into the season. But they think with all this young talent and all this young speed at edge rusher now, in addition to Leonard Floyd, drafting Jalen Walker, drafting James Pierce, Leonard Floyd, Arnold Ebiketie, among others, that they can get after the quarterback. And as we just recently discussed, the Bucs have some firepower, and basically, if you can prevent the best way to prevent Egbuka and Evans from creating problems is, Baker Mayfield can't complete passes if he's on his backside. So if they can get after the quarterback, that will be key. And then winning the turnover battle, you already mentioned it with Antoine Winfield's success against the Bucs, against the Falcons. The Falcons have a safety that has a lot of success against the Bucs, and Jesse Bates. Both of these guys are probably going to each create at least one turnover in this game based off of recent matchups. They always seem to be in the right place or the wrong place, depending on your perspective, at the right or wrong time. And because this has the potential to be a high scoring affair, like we saw in both matchups last year, one turnover could potentially swing a game. And so, it'll be interesting to sort of see which of these two safeties or other players on either side of the defense can make that sort of game-changing play in terms of the turnover. For you, what are some of the keys that you're looking at for the Bucs to be able to walk away with a win?
Oh, I mean, like you, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Look, offensively, protect Baker against this revamped Falcons pass rush when you don't have Tristan Wirfs there protecting the blind side, and create takeaways. So last year, in the 2 games, Baker had 3 turnovers against the Falcons, and he was sacked just once. That pass rush is going to be even more difficult to face this year with the additions of Pierce and Walker. And as you said, they're going to have a conveyor belt, just a constant rotation of fresh bodies out there trying to get after him and beat up on Charlie Heck. The Bucs, of course, missing their left tackle. On the flip side, the Bucs had just 1 takeaway against the Falcons last season. So losing the turnover battle 3-1 in 2 games is already handicapping yourself. Todd Bowles said all offseason he wants ball hawks at all 3 levels of the defense. In preseason, the Bucs answered that call by leading the NFL in interceptions over those 3 games. This isn't preseason anymore, so you have to figure out a way to continue that momentum and get big plays from your players, whether that's a tipped pass that somebody can get underneath, or creating a fumble, or just getting your hands on the football. If you are going to give yourselves a chance, excuse me, if you're going to give yourselves a chance to win a big road divisional game to open the season, short-handed takeaways are the reason. And I would say that I can't give an advantage to the Bucs defense because the Falcons are kind of in the same boat, but Baker Mayfield was talking to the media on Wednesday, and he said that this game is particularly tough because Zach Robinson's offense is similar to the one that Liam Cohen and Josh Grizzard have installed in Tampa. And so because of that, it's all going to come down to the little things. Both of these defenses know how both of these offenses are going to operate because both of these offenses operate the same way.
Uh-huh. And James, I really appreciate you for once on a crossover, someone coming on a podcast and saying, I'm worried about the Falcons pass rush. I've never heard that. I've been doing crossovers
there hasn't been a reason to until now.
Yes, I know, for over 8 years, and no one's ever said that before on a crossover. So I appreciate you being the very first to say so.
And to be fair, I don't know if I'll say it the next time. I probably would not have said it if Tristan was playing.
Probably. But we'll take what we can get here in Atlanta. So, talking about this game, and we've already sort of laid out sort of what each team needs to do in order to win. James, I'll give you the floor. Do you feel like the Bucs will do what it takes to walk away with a win this weekend?
Well, we did the divisional preview episode with Ross and Julian, and all 4 of us were together. And when we got done, I told you, I said, spoiler alert, Aaron, I'm going to pick the Falcons to win this game because Baker is not going to touch the field in preseason. And then you were like, but James, Michael Penix isn't touching the field in preseason either. And then the right tackle issues happened. And then Darnell Mooney happened. And I'm like, all right, Bucs are going to win this game. They're going to go out on the road without Godwin, without McMillan, without Wirfs. They're going to win this game. I think I'll throw it out there. I think this ends up being the best game of the week. These teams know each other so well. They're evenly matched. I think this has the opportunity to be the most entertaining game that we get in week 1. And just like both games last year, this one's coming down to the wire. So whoever has the ball last is going to win.
Yes. I feel like that's going to be most Falcons and Bucs games this upcoming season, where it's just going to be like, last 5 minutes, we'll have a better idea who's going to win this game, but it's all, build up to that. But for that same reason, I'm a believer that the Falcons will come away with the victory because they'll make the plays in the final 5 minutes that they need to make, as they did both times last year. And I feel like even though Michael Penix gets off to slow starts in his 3 previous starts, he usually finishes very strong. And so that gives me the optimism that I think the Falcons will walk away with a victory in week 1. So we will see what each of these teams do week 1. I agree with you, James. I think this has the potential to be one of the high-flying, high-scoring, most entertaining games of the week 1 matchup. But that's going to do it for us here, guys, on today's crossover Thursday here on Locked On Falcons and Locked On Bucs, presented by Prize Picks. Of course, continue to check out both of these shows as we get you more geared up with further previews between now and Sunday on both shows. And of course, you can find them on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, for your second listen after you've, enjoyed this crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks, make sure you check out the season previews to get you even more informed about all the other teams heading into week 1. And of course, those season previews are available for you on the Locked On NFL channel. It is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.